Hey all, here OS Reviews. In this video, we're taking a quick look at the TOZO Crystal Pods. These are relatively affordable, true wireless buds that have a kind of interesting semi-transparent design. If you turn the buds over, you can make out some of the components inside, packing functions like active noise cancellation, as well as support for their companion app. Like other products that we've seen from TOZO in the past, including their smartwatches, this is a brand that is pretty well known for offering excellent value for the money, and this is no exception. So despite a pretty interesting design, these are actually priced at only around $30, but often you can find coupons bringing it closer to just $20, which I think makes it one of the more stylish $20 pair of really budget wireless headphones that I've seen. Although this aesthetic was probably originally inspired by the Nothing Buds that have become quite popular over the past few years, we have seen other type of transparent design tech in the past, whether it's power banks, as well as more recently a couple of other transparent design alternative wireless headphones, such as the KZ Carols from a couple of weeks back also had a pretty interesting touch, but as we discussed in our review, the KZs don't offer any companion app support, so it's going to be a little bit harder to customize the sound as well as EQ controls compared to TOZO having their first-party app. And that's a similar story to some of the other pairs that we've seen previously as well, which also look pretty neat, including this Arrivo Evo, which have a transparent carbon fiber inspired look, but these pairs also are lacking a companion app support, and in the case of the Arrivos, don't have active noise cancellation built in either. So again, by contrast, these are going to be a little bit more feature stacked. I'll also mention that TOZO have previously released another model called the Crystal Buds, which instead have this kind of dot-shaped design compared to the longer stem of the Crystal Buds. And the Crystal Buds also have a transparent visor on the battery case, but it doesn't have that transparent plastic on the buds themselves. So I think that the design on these are just a little bit more intricate. In addition to the pods here now support active noise cancellation, which was missing on the Crystal Buds. Briefly looking at some top-line specs, you can also find these in blue, pink, as well as white, although it seems like the black version often has the most steep discounts available, using a pretty up-to-date Bluetooth 5.4 chip, coupled with a low latency mode for gaming and watching videos. That being said, like most other budget buds, they are lacking any high-res audio codecs like LDAC or aptX lossless, so it is using the standard SBC and AAC, but that's kind of expected for a $20 pair of headphones. They also are IPX5 rated, so if you splash it with rain, taking them to the gym, or running outdoors, they should still survive. You do also get a transparency mode built on in to amplify the sounds around you if you want to be aware of what's going on, and again, their app, which is available for both iOS, iPhones, as well as Android, has 32 different EQs that you can switch between. The battery case combined also gets you up to 35 hours of listening time, although that's with ANC off. With it on, it's closer to around 30 hours. So I think that's on the average side, and on a continuous listening session, you can expect around 6 hours or so before you need to top it up, but it does have quick charging support. And by the way, they are using 10mm composite drivers inside. You can expect just a quick user guide as well as a USB Type-C charging cable, along with 2 other sets of silicone tips. So you get 3 total with 1 attached for a more snug fit, small, medium, and large. Now, as far as a couple of other slight compromises just to reach a lower price point, some capabilities that you won't find on the TOZO Crystal Pods would be support for wireless Qi charging. So unlike something like the AirPods, you can't really pop it onto a charging pad to top it up. You do have to still use the Type-C cable, and also there is no multi-point connectivity on these. So unlike some of the more premium models, which allows you to pair to maybe 2 devices simultaneously for automatically switching between audio coming between a phone and a computer, this thing can only connect to 1 device at a time. Additionally, it's lacking a magnetic switch as part of the battery case, meaning if you flip it open, the buds don't automatically turn on until you actually remove it from the casing, and then it switches on, and then when you pop it back in, of course, it begins to charge. I just point that out because, again, some of the more premium models have a switch built into just the lid, making it a little bit faster to wake up and pair. This maybe just takes an extra split second. However, it still is overall not too bad because they are using fairly up-to-date Bluetooth 5.4, but overall, I think these are reasonable compromises at a low price point. The design here definitely is quite distinctive. We have this kind of textured appearance that is underneath the plastic, so it still remains smooth, and otherwise we have just a single LED on the front to display whether the buds are charging or not. I guess it would have been nice to have maybe 4 LEDs to more precisely gauge the specific percentage battery remaining in the buds, but you could also just take a look at that number from the companion app when it is connected to your phone instead. And I have to say, it doesn't feel too cheap or flimsy or hollow, despite, again, a relatively entry-level price, the buds are held into place pretty well magnetically, and when we do pop them out, again, we have a continuation of that texture design here on the front, along with that transparent look here on the back. Although what looks like a button here on the top is just a metal accent for decoration, they're still using touch-sensitive controls, which allows you to play, pause, and skip tracks, in addition to switching between the ANC, audio transparency, and normal modes. The ergonomics of the Crystal Pods do feel quite comfortable and lightweight, loosely resembling the AirPod Pros from a fit perspective, and overall, they stayed in place quite well even with light movement, and after a few hours of wearing, didn't feel too uncomfortable, adding too much weight, anything like that. Now, as far as the mesh here underneath the silicone tips, it's also crafted out of metal instead of plastic, which we usually see on budget buds, making this a little bit easier to clean. So from a build and design perspective, I do think the hardware here might be one of the strongest attributes. Taking a quick look at the TOZO Companion app, turning on Bluetooth and location services allows you to pair with the nearby buds, and from here you're able to gauge the battery percentage remaining on the left and the right sides, although it seems the percentage of the battery case won't be shown since it's not technically connected over to the phone. So just keep that in mind, and the middle section allows you to control the aforementioned EQ. The default here is the standard, but you can also choose bass boosted, bass reduced, classical, dance, hip-hop, jazz, pop, vocal, treble enhanced versus reduced, electronic, piano, metal, relaxing, podcast mode, which will emphasize speech, country, R&B, folk, so on and so forth. So you get a few more genres, I would say, than most other buds, particularly at this price point. And you can also take a look at how the audio is tuned on each of these built-in EQs that you can further tweak to your liking if desired. For instance, this is the bass boosted, as you can tell here, emphasizing some of the lows a little bit more, but if I wanted to, I can crank this up even further if you want even more aggressive bass, allowing you to then save those over to the profile if desired. So it gives you a bit more, again, granularity, which is nice to have. That being said, one feature that you won't find here would be a auto EQ mode that does a personalized hearing test. That is a mode that we do see on most of the SoundPeats wireless buds just as a reference point, and some of the more flagship models from Soundcore by Anchor Buds as well, which would have been nice, but it's kind of expected at this price point, and also you still have plenty of these built-in manual controls already that should give you a nice enough customization over how you want the sound to be like. Now up top here under the gear icon, you can also see if there's any occasional firmware updates to push over to the buds, improving on the system stability, and you can also turn on the low latency gaming mode. But keep in mind that low latency mode will also slightly decrease the audio quality because it's technically compressing the audio when transmitting it to the buds. So if you are exclusively listening to music as well as audiobooks, I would recommend turning that off unless you are watching videos or gaming and need a bit more responsiveness. Now you can even customize what the controls for the touchpad here correlate to, inclusive of a single, double, triple, as well as long press. Be assigned to features including skip track controls or even volume up and down, which is great to find. So you can set the specific features that you commonly use over to the controls. So those are the core features of the app. It is pretty simple. The other tabs are mostly reference points where you can find her other products, as well as a forum or community tab. It's almost like a social media app of its own that's designed for just community members, as well as accessing support if you have any questions. And the Explore tab allows you to play back some nature sounds to help you unwind and relax. For instance, falling rain, ocean waves, things like that, which is a nice touch. One thing that you won't find though would be the ability to control the intensity of the active noise cancellation. It's either on or off. In other words, it's not really adaptive, like on some more premium models, which allows you to crank up the intensity yourself, for instance. So that is something that you won't find on a more cost-effective model like these. And now moving into the most important aspect, which is sound quality and performance, I would say these definitely punch above their weight, and it's not just style over substance, luckily. Expanding on that, I found bass to be actually quite powerful on these, so if you are more of a bass head and you enjoy the kind of kicks as you're listening to a drum beat or EDM tracks, pop music, I think you'll find these to be quite satisfactory, particularly for a smaller pair of buds. They're definitely more pronounced and a bit more aggressive than I was expecting, without being too out of control either. Now, if you are going to be super nitpicky as more of a discerning audiophile, you could argue that those bass as well as some of the mids do get pushed a bit more forward compared to perhaps the trebles. So if you're primarily interested in dissecting details in vocals as well as, again, some of the higher frequency sounds, then that might be an aspect where you have to pay a little bit more to get a slightly more premium pair with perhaps more nuanced drivers inside. But I think for the casual listener, keeping in mind that these are $20 at the end of the day, they'll still be, I think, for the most part, quite content and satisfied with the sound as you're just using them casually when going out, working out, things like that. They definitely do the job in getting you energized, packing enough volume, as well as what I would classify as good enough sound to get you immersed in the audio experience. Honestly, I've heard worse in buds which are 2 times the price, so I think that TOZO have done a good enough job with the tuning here, and they will more than handle the basics without any problems. And I would dare say they sound maybe even a little bit better than something like the Xiaomi Redmi AirDots, which are another popular budget option if you prefer a model that has a little bit more bass. So it's a generally punchy, dynamic, and clean enough sound for it to be, I think, still a very good choice in this entry-level price point. Now, when it comes to the active noise cancellation component, despite not being industry-leading in this regard, they still are doing an effective job of repressing many of the, again, lower frequency sounds from engines and fan noises. So if you are commuting, I think they will still be helpful, or just for slightly reducing some of the background chatter if you're in an office or a cafe. Like most ANC products, though, higher frequency sounds, including voices, can still occasionally creep in, and they're not going to be quite as impressive as some of the more flagship ANC buds on the market, but still, they are effective enough to make a difference with them switched on versus off that you'll definitely appreciate the presence here. Couple of final remarks here. There are various microphones scattered across the edges of the buds, including one at the bottom here. So if you're making phone calls, the quality here is also actually a little better than expected because it is a little closer to your mouth thanks to the stem design. That being said, audio quality, I would say, and the design are still the main selling points of this particular model. One additional sensor that you won't find in the hardware, by the way, would be an auto play and pause function. There is no proximity sensor that can detect if these are being worn or removed, unlike the actual AirPods, for instance. But again, these are reasonable compromises, in my opinion, at this low price point. So that is more or less it as far as our quick hands-on review of the TOZO Crystal Pods. I think the most impressive thing here is them having a pretty well-rounded app with various EQ and remappable touch controls, in addition to having a pretty stylish design at a really low price point. Sure, it's maybe lacking some of the high-res audio or hi-fi wireless Bluetooth codecs, and missing some of the smaller touches such as multi-point connectivity. However, again, it's all reasonable compromises in my opinion for a really entry-level cost. And the sound quality I think is also surprisingly quite solid, particularly if you do enjoy a bit more bass. So all in all, actually a very good value option yet again from TOZO. You can check out more details if you're interested in the links down below. For now, that's been our video. Thanks for watching here at OS Reviews. That has been the budget-conscious TOZO Crystal Pods.